So now I would like you to meet one of our faculty members, one of our new members who just started this spring, gosh, I'm already way off, the fall semester. You're not here that long. So Abigale Stangl is going to tell you about her research and all. So let her take it over. Let me get off my screen if you need to share the screen, Abigale, and let you get going.
Great. Thanks so much. Let's make sure this is all set up and then I'll start. Can you see my presentation? Does that work? Can you hear me? And can you see me?
Yes, we can see it and we can hear it.
Okay, wonderful. Let me just get there. Okay. Well, it's my pleasure to be here with you all. And it's exciting to know that you're interested in joining ID at Georgia Tech. I'm a brand new professor in the department or the School of Industrial Design in the College of Design. And I want to share with you a little bit about my vision and my research and with the MultiSense Studio. It's a design research studio. So when I am thinking about what it means to be a designer, I'm thinking about the sensory world, and I'm thinking about how, as humans, we perceive our environments and how we engage with information in our environments, whether that is a physical product, information in our interfaces, or relating to one another, or relating to artificial intelligence. And so the lab that I'm creating is focused on integrating sensory experiences, interaction modes, knowledge pathways to foster innovation and inclusivity. In this lab, in the identity that I'm trying to create for this lab, there's an asterisk. It's a wildcard character that signifies flexibility or inclusivity and embraces diversity and adaptability. And I think that that's something that industrial design at Georgia Tech is really spearheading, especially in our efforts focused on well-being and many other areas. But thinking about how do we actually lead the industry in shifting our ideals around inclusivity, making sure that everybody can come to the table, that everybody is able, regardless of our abilities or disabilities, to be in the conversation and become designers. So when I talk about sense, we talk about the sense making, the mental processes, but also the understanding that we gain through various means, including our sensory perception. And then we talk about a studio. In academic research, we often hear people talk about labs or research groups, but what's unique to industrial design is that we get to be both designers and researchers. So it's an environment where innovation and design ideas are explored, developed, and refined. So currently, I just want to do a quick introduction to the four of us that are gathered in the lab. We have both students that are aspiring to be PhD students, as well as students that are focused on joining a UX career, as well as students who are exploring how to integrate music and various technologies into their product design. So my focus and my discipline and my studies has focused on accessibility and disability studies, learning science, as well as design science, and human-computer interaction and human-centered AI. And I think that industrial design has a really unique opportunity, and you as potential students have a unique opportunity to be really leading industry into figuring out how do we really incorporate a variety of human experiences and how they are embodied and represented through our products that we consume and also produce. So I just want a quick shout out that this is the 50th anniversary of the American Disability Act, and what the American with Disabilities Act talks about in several respects is how we access information. How do we make sure that content is accessible across various modes of interaction? And so my work, my research, and my design work, my research through design work, research through design, I just want to say, is focused on allowing the insights that we gain through the practice of design to inform our scholarly knowledge around where the field should go. And I conduct design research on tactile media, image description, audio description, and building communities of practice that make sure that all of these different practices are accessible to people with different abilities and disabilities. So when I talk about tactile media, I am commonly focused on working with people who are blind or visually impaired, and the students that I work with are focused on innovating how do we design physical media with sound and touch to be responsive to the environment, but also engaging people that do not have vision in the sense of touch and sound. But also it's focused on how do we actually support people who are blind to be artists and designers. For the most part, a lot of people with disabilities have been excluded from participating fully in design processes. And what we see on this slide are a series of 8 thumbnails that are showing blind people both involved in design tasks as well as the objects that they have created in various design studies that I've run. And you know, when we think about design, for me, the fundamental component is that design is something that creates a sense of agency. And through agency, people are able to reflect on themselves and their abilities and what they want to communicate and how they want to be engaging in the world. And if people with disabilities are not afforded those opportunities, then they're missing a critical opportunity. And frankly, our society is missing a critical opportunity to engage people with diverse experiences and interests in leading innovation within design. So, you know, fundamentally, it's about enhancing information access, thinking about how do we study multimodal and embodied learning? What are how do we actually design products that bring us away from our screens and back into our physical environment, back into our relational environment to create inclusive content and make sure that people of every ability can be engaged in that content creation. So a lot of my work in the past has been focused on defining problems of practice that have excluded people with who are blind or visually impaired from participating in efforts, as we see on this slide, for example, of high school students for the first time in their life being included in a field trip, and for the first time in their life being able to make scientific observations through the sense of touch, and then thinking about how do we actually draw them back into the design lab and utilizing those senses to their knowledge and their embodied experience into a design practice to communicate what they're observing. And a lot of times this is through, you know, thinking about tactile media design. And, you know, unfortunately, many of our learning resources in our studio environments are not yet accessible for people who are learning primarily through the senses of touch and sound. And so one of my goals and desires is to think, you know, to work with students like you possibly to really think about our infrastructure. How do we create inclusive design infrastructures so that people can participate and lend their voices to the field? And part of that, one of my initiatives is thinking about how do we design an undergraduate curriculum around non-visual manufacturing? How do we engage students in designing a tactile picture book for somebody who's blind, but in the process, working directly with a community member who's blind, who wants to learn about design, who has insight about what makes an interface accessible or not, and together determining what we need to do to transform our manufacturing infrastructure to actually make innovation within industrial design possible. And, you know, I just want to do a quick sales pitch. You know, as an incoming student, you know, I'm looking for grad students to work with who are interested in exploring any facet of this research. These are complex questions, these are complex problems, because as a society, we still have so much stigma around disability and our infrastructures have not been developed. But if you have any interest in my research or any of the other my colleagues' research, we want your energy. We want to cultivate you. We want to support you in learning how to craft your thinking and your ideas and your practice to be able to help address some of these wicked design problems that we face. So the next area of my research has been focused on the development of artificial intelligence with respect to image description. So this is not just for people who are blind or visually impaired, but I work closely with people who are blind in this field because they are the innovators. They are experimenting. They are being shown the possibility of computer vision technology where computers can describe what's happening around you, and that somebody could ask a question about what's happening around them and have a computer respond as opposed to a person, or thinking about when do we actually want computers to be answering our questions about our surroundings versus what are there ethical issues that might come up with, for example, sharing private information and having that AI system being trained on our private information, and really thinking about, how much should we be relying on AI versus what are the practices of actually making sure that everybody has, is included in what's going on through access to images and videos. So we know that currently a lot of images and videos are one size fits all. So if at all, many blind people will not get access to visual information, but if at all, they'll get just a simple description. And thinking about AI and what it can do, it allows us to think about, well, let's say that we're on a shopping website, as shown in this image, and somebody wants to know about the outfit. And what happens if they could say, hey, what color are the pants? And the system would say, oh, those are black pants, and they're paired with an olive colored shirt. It would be amazing to do that. And so this is an example of a project that I worked on in 2018 that is still kind of state of the art in terms of how do we make shopping accessible through computer vision algorithms that look at the image and they parse that image out and they identify through semantic segmentation and automatic magnification and color detection, different patterns in those products to then deliver a meaningful information to somebody's question. And, just to say from a research perspective, this is challenging to really know how to program the algorithms to be able to answer a unique individual's questions based off of their experience, based off of where they're coming from in a meaningful way. And that's where our research is moving into really meaningful directions. So, and specifically, my work has really focused on context-aware image descriptions. I'm really proud of this work because it was some of the first work to say, hey guys, one size fits all image descriptions don't work. And now we see a bunch of algorithms that are being tested and designed and trained on based off of principles around contextual awareness, so that we know that, so that we ensure that people who are blind are empowered to actually make the decisions that they want with the information that comes their way. This is another example where, for example, we collected a data set of 40,000 images collected by blind people, and we observed what were their questions about various products. And this actually opens up a new area of research and thinking about, well, how can we actually design products so that they're answering these questions inherently without the need for visual interpretation, and they could be understood more directly through the sense of touch. I won't say more about this now, but if you're interested in this, the VisWiz Grand Challenge has been supported by Apple and Microsoft and Google, and is cutting edge in terms of how do we develop algorithms from photos that are irregular. And recently I was just presenting a paper on a similar topic, and this really is cutting edge research, I'd say. And part of this cutting edge research is thinking about how do we analyze videos, how do we analyze the composition of information from various dimensions, whether it's in a video where we have the audio descriptions, we have the visual information, we have the sound information, we have people asking questions about what's happening. How do we look at the interactions people have with that information in ways that we can better make our videos accessible? And, you know, from a design perspective, we're always trying to represent our content and our information through video, whether it's live stream video on Zoom or whether it's a promotional material for a company. You know, we want to be thinking about making sure that everybody at the table can access that information. And in our lab, we're thinking about how do we do that through multimodal analysis and setting new benchmarks for inclusion. And, you know, fundamentally, this is really thinking about visual to audio sense making and, you know, working with partners, including the FET project and Emily Moore out of CU Boulder, thinking about storytelling and sense making across modalities, interaction models, and, you know, building systems, really thinking about how do we actually pair baseline image descriptions with services that allows a person to ask questions of the environment and get accurate responses from computational systems. So I'll just say that, like, my interest, and I hope to involve some of you in some of this work, is thinking about, as designers, how can we make sure that we're designing our physical and digital, whether that's web-based or XR, or beyond, you know, like, how do we actually make sure that anybody is getting the information that they want through the modes that they want to be getting that information through? And, you know, frankly, I'm not that technical. And I've been very fortunate to work with, again, top researchers at top companies who are in computer vision, who are at the state of the art in terms of what they're doing with artificial intelligence and the development of machine learning models. But for me, it started with becoming part of these communities. I spent years working at the Colorado Center for the Blind, and working and teaching art to people who are blind, and thinking about, well, how do we actually support deep and authentic collaborations with researchers and practitioners so that it's benefiting both of us? How do we engage in co-design so that, you know, it's not just how do we say it? So that we're celebrating everybody's voices, that we're not falling into just the dominant patterns because they've been pervasive. How do we start to question and critically analyze our design rhetorics that have been put into place so that we can start to decouple what agency is from the physical body, from the ways in which we make sense of the world, and be more inclusive and be more tolerant and be respectful of the great diversity of human intelligence that we have, and leveraging AI in a way that is supporting humans as opposed to taking over and eliminating our human practices. And, you know, again, I just want to highlight that this comes down to both being on the ground with our communities and being human, and thinking about what is the state of the art, how do we create community atlases, how do we bring each other together. This is a project that my class, Design with Access in Mind, has been creating to essentially bring together all the accessibility-focused resources from the Georgia landscape into one place, so that if anybody interested in learning about accessibility or disability, or just frankly wanting to connect with people who don't engage with media in the same ways that the mainstream media and product landscape is presented, how do we actually create a community, and how can we become activists towards celebrating and supporting inclusion? So, you know, just I'm really excited that you all might be interested in joining the program, and I just challenge you to think about authentically, like, what do you want? How can we support you in becoming the designers and sharing your voice, and really building a program around humanitarian endeavors for well-being as our world becomes crazier and crazier just because of the the tensions that we feel due to the vulnerabilities. So, I just want to put out there, a major product of research is actually publication, not just physical product design or user interface design. For me, this is really near and dear because, we want to disseminate. It's a privilege to be an academic. It's a privilege to be studying and working together. And we have a responsibility to share the knowledge of our explorations to the world in ways that might influence the next generation of people. And I'm really excited to be here with you to do that. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Whether or not you're going to come to our program, academia, the work that we're doing is all about our networks and how do we support each other. So yeah, Tim, with that, I have finished my presentation. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome, and thank you. First presentation that got so many accolades during it. It was awesome, so appreciate it. Now, there is one question that somebody posted. I don't know if you can see the chat, and you might want to try to see if you can answer that one, because I think you sort of addressed this, but if you had a chance to read it real quick, and then
yeah. So the question here is that the MID course is mostly focused on hands-on ID research. So I was wondering if we were able to work with this multi-sense studio. Will we get an opportunity to learn AI ML coding, building algorithms, or other technologies too? What are the prerequisites, and what if we come in with a non-technical background? I mean, this is a great question. Most of my education, I've been a non-technical student, a design student. I studied architecture and planning and then information communication technology from a social lens. And then I started to partner up with computer vision researchers. My advisor, my PhD advisor, was in computer vision. And so, and also, for example, like I feel really proud of this, but it's also kind of a joke to me that I was a computing innovation fellow from the National Science Foundation. And I've never coded in my life, right? And I remember I went to an event and they finally said, like the trends of where we're going within our computational domain have to do with public interest technologies. How can we actually make sure our technologies are distributed and really reach people at every end of the spectrum? And then it's also about interdisciplinary work. And so what's really cool about Georgia Tech is that there are many interdisciplinary programs. We have connections with the interactive computing department, with psychology, with media and tech. There's so many connections, and it's really easy to engage with that. And so it's more about what you're interested in and how can we support you in getting into the classes and developing the skills that you want for you to really build your voice as a designer. So, I don't want to go into the logistics. Actually, Tim can actually do that better. But I want to say that I don't think that if you're committed and have energy, we want to see you there because this is the future.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I think one of the important things about Georgia Tech is it really promotes the interdisciplinary aspect. It's been I think a hallmark of our university that is key from top down. They wanted that to be happening, and fortunately we were already kind of pushing it from top to bottom, and so it really is nice to have that support from way up and everything with it. So I tell students a lot of times the biggest challenge is maybe getting lost in all the opportunities that you have here at Georgia Tech, and making sure you don't kind of get just overwhelmed with all that, but really kind of finding that area, finding that focus, and then developing it and working on it further. So, all right. But thank you so much, Abby, for your presentation tonight. So I learned a lot. I enjoyed it, and I think a lot of our participants did as well. You got a lot of accolades there within it all. So, but thank you again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All righty.